You know, I was going to start this by saying we're going to talk about Francis Ford Coppola's worst movie, but since we live in a timeline where Megalopolis now exists, it's kind of hard to say that.
Nature has given us all an internal clock. Your son's seems to be ticking faster than usual.
But he's healthy.
Absolutely.
However, his cells are developing at 4 times the normal rate. If this continues throughout his life, by the time he reaches age 10, he could
Appear to be an ordinary, full-grown, 40-year-old man.
I'm telling you, he's our age, but he looks 40.
Jack Powell is a grown-up on the outside.
After an unusually short pregnancy, Karen, played by Diane Lane, gives birth to a baby boy whose body ages much faster than the normal rate. With her husband Brian, played by Brian Kerwin, Karen raises their son Jack, played by Robin Williams, who appears to be a 40-year-old man when he is really just 10. Though Jack ages rapidly, physically, he is mentally and emotionally still a young boy, which causes him considerable difficulty. Eventually, Jack gains the support of his peers, which helps him live a fuller life. I just want to ask, like, there's that one trailer that they made where they tried making it like, Francis Ford Coppola made some of the most controversial movies that people hated at the time, and then they were hailed as classics, and they were showing, like, negative movie reviews for movies that went on to be classics like Apocalypse Now and Godfather, and then it turned out that some of those quotes were actually fucking AI generated. Why didn't they use Jack in that trailer? So a couple of years ago, I mentioned this movie offhand when I was talking about directors who, for the most part, made really good movies, but every once in a while had really massive duds on their hands. And for Ron Howard, it was The Dilemma, and for Rob Reiner, it was North. And now we're talking about Francis Ford Coppola's, one of his biggest embarrassments. The director of such classics like, Apocalypse Now, and The Godfather, and that Dracula movie that I could have sworn people hated, but I guess people are coming around on it and saying it's like a cult classic or some shit. So what is Jack about? Well, it's about a 10-year-old boy who has a condition to where he ages way faster than he actually does. So even though he's only 10 years old, he appears to be 40. And he's played by Robin Williams. And this was at a time in Robin Williams' career where it felt like he was doing a lot of these, like, dramedies. And, I mean, the best of them I still say is Mrs. Doubtfire. I think Mrs. Doubtfire still really holds up. Watch that every once in a while. I think that's still a pretty fun movie. It has a lot of funny moments, and I feel like it actually balances pretty serious character drama. But this was also the late 90s that gave us, like, Patch Adams, which I only saw once, and I remember not being too big on it. I guess that's another one that seems to be developing a cult following. This is definitely in the vein of one of those kind of movies. It's one of those, you laugh, you cry, you feel a little bit of everything. But, I don't know, I personally feel like the movie didn't really do a whole lot. I didn't really get a whole lot out of it. I was more uncomfortable more than anything. Beginning of the movie, you have two parents, Brian and Karen, and I forget who plays the dad, but the mom is played by Diane Lane, and they're at a Halloween party, interestingly enough dressed up as the Tin Man and the Wicked Witch of the West, and she goes into labor, even though it has not been 9 months, but she's going into labor right now. So they rush her over to the hospital, she gives birth, and then sometime after that later, we then see them talking to some doctors who are saying that this baby apparently has some kind of condition, and the condition is that it ages at a rapid rate.
At age 1, your son may be physically around age 4. And if this continues throughout his life, by the time he reaches age 10, well, he could
Appear to be an ordinary, full-grown, 40-year-old man.
So then you jump forward a considerable amount of time and you see that the baby is now a 10-year-old, but appears to be a 40-year-old man. And of course, played by Robin Williams. And, well, they try to keep him sheltered from the outside world because this is such a rare thing. Jack, as he's called, is homeschooled, and, the teacher they have coming over to do his homeschooling, uncomfortably enough, is Bill Cosby.
I don't think he can fit in. I wish he could.
But nobody said it would be easy. And Jackson would develop defense mechanisms just like any child with a shortcoming does.
Wasn't enough that we had to talk about him in Leonard Part 6. We had to have him show up here too. Joy of joys. He ends up suggesting that maybe Jack is ready to go to public school and that maybe they should start branching out and letting him actually live a life outside of the four walls of their home. But they don't think that's a very good idea. And it's certainly not helped by the fact that when they're discussing this, Jack asks if he could come and sleep in their bed with them because he's afraid of the dark, while he's wearing like footy pajamas and holding a stuffed animal.
Can I sleep in here?
Yeah, of course, buddy.
Stimpy too?
Sure.
Okay.
Easy.
And that was something that was bothering me throughout the whole movie, and I was trying to figure out, okay, what tone are we going for here? Because it feels like with a premise like this, you should pick a lane. You should either have it be a relatively serious character drama where you follow this person who has this rare condition and you like lean more into what would happen if someone had this condition, what kind of life they would lead, what kind of traumas they would go through. Or you go the opposite direction and you have it be just a wacky, zany comedy where Robin Williams is supposed to be a 10-year-old and he's, bumping into things and it's just a, wackalicious fun-a-thon of the summer. The two genres clash, and it's not a very good example of a dramedy where you have both drama and comedy together. It's just an absolutely uncomfortable mixing of the two, where when it wants to be funny, it's incredibly childish, but when it wants to be taken seriously, it feels just a little deathly serious for some reason.
I appreciate what you're trying to do. But Brian and I, we've seen how people react. We've been through this before. I just don't want Jack to have to face that.
Ultimately, the parents decide to let him go to public school for the first time, and he's, of course, very awkward. He doesn't really know how to socialize with all these people, with other kids, and, well, a lot of the shit you see in the trailer, he goes to public school. His homeroom teacher is played by Jennifer Lopez.
Come on. It's okay. Welcome to our class. I'm glad you're here. Everybody, this is Jack Powell.
Which just kind of adds to the uncomfortability. He could either stay home and be homeschooled by Bill Cosby, or he can go to public school and be taught by someone who I'm more than positive was close to P. Diddy. So this is not a win-win for Jack. They have Robin Williams say a bunch of dumb stuff, like he talks about how he doesn't like broccoli because it makes you fart, and I guess some of the kids in the room laugh.
What kind of foods do you just hate?
Broccoli.
Broccoli.
Makes you
yuck.
fart.
And he sits down at his desk, and the desk collapses because he's too big for it.
Come on now, calm down. Jack, are you okay?
And later, when they're at recess, Jack is getting picked on by these two girls, and they have this back and forth. One of them's like, "Oh, you look old," and then he says something like, "Oh, well, you're a Four Eyes."
You can't be 10 if you shave and you have hairy arms and you're tall, really tall, and you're bigger.
You're a freak, Four Eyes.
He's 10. A whole 2 years older than us. See? Oh, sure. Like that explains it. Please.
But then I guess he wins some of the kids over because the kids are trying to win a basketball game against some older kids. Stereotypical late 90s movie bullies. All they were missing was fucking slick back hair and leather jackets. Then Jack, of course, steps in because he's got the physique of an adult, and he absolutely slam dunks everything. And they have Robin Williams do this ridiculous dance that... There's a part where Diane Lane is going through her scrapbook of like family photos. It's filmed like a music video. Like she's just like looking inquisitively at the pictures, and the camera is swaying around. Like a music video you'd see for like the Disney Channel. It's like, oh, it's just so whimsical. Oh man, they got bubbles. Just to highlight again that he's supposed to be a 10-year-old and he does childish things, he takes his shirt and like pulls it over top his forehead like he's the great Cornholio. But he's on the phone with his dad, and Lane is smiling in the background. And then the weirdest shot, you cut to the dad, who's supposed to be a photographer, and he's taking a picture of, like, scantily clad women on giant carrots.
He said, way to go. You know, but not because of the red gummy bears, because of the way I play basketball. Yeah, it was great. She said, Shaq better watch his back. She's what Grandpa says is a real piece of work. It's really great. What are you doing?
Okay, no, I'm just shooting an ad layout. Carrots.
He ends the phone call. He's like, oh, I have to take a picture for a carrot ad. And it's like, it looks like a Naked Gun shot. It looks like something you'd see in like a Zucker Brothers parody movie. It's like just like this weird visual that hits you first time you see it. You're like, wait, what the hell is going on here? But anyway, so yeah, things are going good for Jack. And he's hanging out with these boys. The boys at school like him. They invite him over to hang out in their tree fort. And here's where the movie gets really uncomfortable once again. You have it that these boys ask him to buy them dirty magazines.
So you bought that magazine?
Yeah. Buy them all the time.
What about Hustler? You get Hustler?
If you want it.
Swank?
Yeah, that and, you know, all the grown-up stuff.
You have it that a grown man who's supposed to be a 10-year-old, but what is a grown-up Robin Williams going out of his way to buy porn mags for 10-year-old boys, and then you have some of the worst fucking dialogue. You have it that one of the kids asks this.
Hey, Jack, you ever get a boner?
More uncomfortably, one of the boys, while looking at the magazines, says this.
Check this out. Excuse me.
Think our moms look like that?
Do you think any of our moms look like that? No. Fucking no. On another sidebar, there was a bunch of shit like this in the 90s. There were these like weirdly inappropriate kids movies that just had stuff that, like, I'm totally fine with kids movies pushing the limit. I'm totally fine as long as it's within reason. Like, but stuff like that and oh god, one of my friends reminded me of this. There's that movie Blank Check, which was like Disney's attempt at trying to make Home Alone. But there's a part in there where like you have a grown woman kissing a little boy on the lips. And then there was that, it was about 3 boys traveling to the city so they could meet a prostitute.
What's the matter? I can't do it. I want to be a gentleman. Doesn't a gentleman bring enough for everybody?
What the fuck? What was up with all these like weirdly inappropriate sexual things going on in kids' movies? Aside from the fact that Jack is able to hook them up with things like pornography, and there's another scene where they have Jack pretending to be the principal so that one of the kids can get out of being in trouble around his mom, played by Fran Drescher.
So tell me, what happened to Principal McGee? I just talked to him on the phone.
I don't know what happened to Mr. McGee. Mr. Powell?
He got diarrhea.
This group of 10-year-old boys seem to genuinely like Jack for who he is, because he seems to just be another one of them. And you get wacky scenes of them throwing water balloons at those 2 girls that were making fun of Jack earlier when they say they want to hang out.
No girls allowed!
But then you get these scenes that just feel like they go nowhere. Like, there's a part where Bill Cosby goes with Jack to the tree fort, and he wants him to hang out with his friends. And I think the only reason that scene would have worked was not because of the way they wrote it, but it's like, if you wanted to have it make sense, you could have had it that, like, Bill Cosby, as his former homeschool teacher, would be like, oh, I want to go with him to make sure that he's getting along with other kids his age, you see. But no, he goes because Jack wants him to hang out with his friends, and his friends are like, oh yeah, cool. And it's like, no. It's like, you know, like inviting just another adult to hang out. Even if he was supposed to be the cool homeschooling teacher, I don't think a lot of 10-year-old boys would have gone for that. And it results in this just dumb comedic set piece where they mash a bunch of random food items and shit together in a bowl. And they're like, oh, it's a rite of passage. Oh, you have to eat this if you want to be part of our club. And you know, Bill Cosby reluctantly eats it. And then the tree fort just collapses and falls out of the tree. And And then that's pretty much the end of that. They don't really continue that any point else in the movie. And then there's another part where there's a prom coming up, I guess, which here's what made no sense about that. A 10-year-old prom? What? But Jack goes to Jennifer Lopez, the homeroom teacher, and asks her if she wants to go to the prom because she looks more his age.
Jack, you don't want to go with me. I'm an old lady.
But that's why. That's why I want to go with you. I can't go with the girls my age because I look so much older than them.
While that is absolutely true, the thing that was confusing me, aside from the fact that you never hold proms for 10-year-olds, was like, why would they even consider that, considering there's also a scene in this movie where they're throwing water balloons at girls? But the thing that absolutely caps it is, once again, like the tree fort falling, this whole prom subplot, it goes nowhere. There's no scene after that where they show this prom. Like, so this entire scene was just basically pointless. Here's when the movie tries to become deathly serious, because you have it that Jack is starting to feel pains in his body, and they go to a doctor, and he explains that it's because he's going through puberty, because he still is just 10 years old. So the parents are deciding maybe they should have him stay home and be homeschooled again, and he doesn't want to do that because, you know, he's made so many good friends at school.
We're gonna go back to the way things were before you started school.
No.
Hey, remember all the fun we had?
No. No. No! No!
And he wants to have a life outside of the house. So he gets mad, he then like runs away, and then we get this whole scene. It's like, and it's really long. It's a really long scene where he runs off to a bar and he gets a couple drinks and he talks with Fran Drescher, who, like I said earlier, is supposed to be the mom of one of the kids that he's friends with.
Oh, Principal Powell. I'm so surprised to see you here. Oh, what a nice surprise.
Get up and dance for a little bit and flirt, and they make these like weird sexual advances towards each other, which is, again, just creepy on multiple levels. It's like, dude, I get that you're probably not thinking clearly, but it's like, that's the mother of one of your friends. And you're also technically a minor. Even though you don't look like one, you're still 10 years old, and she's an actually properly aged woman. And a little bit before that, there's a part where he's at the bar and he's talking with this guy who's giving him life advice.
First you start losing your hair.
You start screwing on your back.
Yeah.
Like that.
Out of your nose. Look at that. Your ears. Yeah. What's that all about? Your eyebrows start growing all out on that.
Next thing you know, you're walking around like some bald gorilla. Call you freak.
And then after that, he gets into a bar fight with Willem Dafoe for like most of this, again, doesn't really go anywhere other than just to keep the plot moving and just to have like really oddly serious moments in this movie.
Jeez, what is it with you? What, you totally hyper or something? Too much sugar?
What do you think? You're pretty smart?
Yeah, I do good in everything except social studies.
Studies? How'd you like to study my fists?
Going back to what I said earlier, where it feels like the movie can't decide if it wants to be a wacky comedy or if it wants to be a relatively serious character study drama, it made me think, like, how do you do this kind of movie correctly? I thought of two perfect examples of how you do this kind of thing, right? Okay, if you're gonna do a drama that's like this, the perfect example I can think of is The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, because that's a movie that tackles a very similar thing, where it's a person who has a condition where they age backwards. And that movie, it was from the same writer as Forrest Gump, and you could definitely tell because it really felt like Forrest Gump. It's supposed to be chronicling the life of an interesting person, and you see this person's life. If you want to do this as a just wacky comedy where nobody really takes anything seriously, the best example I could think of was Billy Madison with Adam Sandler, where he's the man-child son of a rich executive who he's going to get the company from his dad when he inevitably passes, but his dad wants him to get a proper education, so he has to spend the next few following weeks going through every grade imaginable and actually proving that he can educate himself before he gets that job. The movie is not at all trying to pretend to be anything great. The movie is perfectly aware that it's just a stupid Adam Sandler vehicle. There's tons of weird non sequiturs all throughout the movie. It's a wacky, zany comedy. It doesn't try to be anything else. Anyway, this whole bar fight scene ends with Fran Drescher bailing Jack out of prison, where he goes back home, and they're just happy to see him, and he's just laying in bed crying, and he can't come out of his room, and his friends are trying to get him to come outside and play, but he's obviously just too depressed, and he can't do it, and he's just absolutely miserable. And they're playing this whimsical music over him just crying in his room while all the kids are in fast motion outside playing. I get the juxtaposition, but it just felt really, really weird. And ultimately, the movie culminates with Jack coming back to school. He does, and all the kids welcome him back with open arms. And they have his like best friend. I forget the kid's name, but like the best friend gives a speech about how when he grows up he wants to be just like Jack, his best friend.
I want to be just like my best friend when I grow up. He's like the perfect grown-up, because on the inside he's still just a kid. It's like he's looking at everything for the first time, because he is. And most grown-ups aren't like that. He knows how to be a great friend.
Aw, isn't that so sweet? And then the movie gives us another time card that we're jumping forward in time. And we're jumping forward just a mere, 7 years later, as if nothing interesting happened in between then. That's what I'm saying with the comparison with Benjamin Button. Benjamin Button was incredibly long, don't get me wrong. That was one of the things I didn't like about it. But otherwise, the movie's story and sense of structure actually worked. And because we're following very big, key moments in this person's life, that's what made it an interesting story and character study. This movie, it's like, we're just jumping forward 7 years. For being a 10-year-old, and then the end of the movie is him at 17 graduating high school. Which, by the way, the makeup job they used to make Robin Williams look older, it's laughable. It looks like a fucking Halloween costume. And that was one of the parts where I had to seriously take a step back and be like, oh my god, the guy who directed The Godfather directed this. The guy who somehow made Marlon Brando look like a legitimate old man before he was even a legitimate old man did this. Then Robin Williams gives a speech, and of course it's the kind of speech you'd expect from this kind of movie. He says the thing about how he's different, and that's good, and it's okay to be weird.
As we come to the end of this phase of our life, we find ourselves trying to remember the good times and trying to forget the bad times. Please, don't worry so much. Because in the end, none of us have very long on this earth. When a shooting star streaks through the blackness, turning night into day, make a wish. I made it, Mom. I'm a grown-up.
And then the movie just kind of stops. It doesn't really end. Him and his friends, they all graduate, they get into a car, drive off into the sunset. Credits. Movie over. I really have no clue what to make of this movie. It's far from the worst thing I've seen, and in all honesty, compared to some of the other Robin Williams movies I've reviewed, I guess I'd probably sit through this over Old Dogs, but that's just because Old Dogs is legitimately one of the worst movies I think I've talked about for this series. That being said, and I fully admit, Flubber is not a very good movie either. But I would rather watch Flubber because I have a bit of a nostalgic soft spot for that movie. Flubber, at least, while there was a lot of really dumb stuff in that at least kind of had fun with stuff. This movie, it can't decide if it wants to be a silly kids movie where you got people pratfalling and, he bumps into things and he sits in a child's desk at school and then it collapses under him because he's got the weight of a grown man. Ha ha. And if it isn't that, it's just weirdly serious drama where, bar fights and flirting with the mom of your best friend, even though you're a 10-year-old boy who looks like he's 40, and then, just like scenes of him crying and the weird whimsical Bryan Adams music video with the bubbles. Like this movie really feels like it couldn't decide what it wanted to be. And I don't know if that was with studio meddling or because of, Ford Coppola's, directorial taste, or him and the writer not agreeing on certain things. I really don't know. But as a movie itself, as a movie that people just went to the theater to see, I really don't know what to make of it. It's like, it wasn't a god-awful experience. I was never really angry or anything. I was just more confused. Like, I just had no clue what to make of it. Maybe there were noble intentions. Maybe there was a way you could have done this kind of story interestingly. I mean, again, like I said, if you're going to go the silly comedy route, go for something like Billy Madison. And if you want to take it in a more serious direction, I feel like a better example of this kind of movie is Benjamin Button. But this movie, I mean, I get, maybe if you grew up with it, you'd be nostalgic for it, I guess. I mean, I felt that way towards a lot of movies, and then eventually I rewatched some of them, and I'm like, wow, I don't know what I saw in these as a kid. But regardless, I mean, maybe if you grew up with it, maybe you'd be nostalgic for it. I've seen people say that, it has a heart at the end of the day, and I guess to an extent that is true, but I don't know. I wasn't really fond of this movie. Again, I wasn't angry. I was just more confused. I really didn't know how to feel. And, like, I didn't really laugh all that much. Most of the character drama felt a little too heavy for a movie of this type. And most of the time I was just uncomfortable by all the weird decisions made throughout the thing. I don't know. That's really all I can say on Jack. It was a movie that I saw. I didn't really hate it, but at the same time, I don't really see myself watching this movie ever again, aside from this once. But like most movies I talk about, at least I could say I've seen it now, so I guess there's that. Anyway, we got one more video for Blockbusters show this month. We're going to be talking about the Sonic OVA. We're going to be talking about the attempt at a Sonic movie before we got the live-action Sonic movies and the Knuckles show that came out, in the 2020s. So, we're going to be looking at that next time, but until then, I'm Adam Sykes of the Blockbuster Show, and we will see you guys in the next video.
How would you like to see your classroom? Yes? Yes. A little louder. Yes. A little louder, Jack.